Hi, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
Hi.
Okay, girls. Well, today, as I already tell you, uh, Jacinta is not going to join us because of the time confusion,
She
because
might.
Miami changed changed time and we weren't aware that, well, um, and so we are going to do it everything in English. The idea is at the beginning that you can introduce yourselves. We are only 14 people here, so I think we can make it. And you just tell Matilda like in which stage you are. If you are already selling at the US, if you are in contact with big retailers, if your goal is to go like wholesale or e-commerce or whatever, and then we are going to have like more accurate like suggestions and like guidance from Matilda for you like during the whole webinar. Okay, so I don't know who wants to start, just like a brief introduction of your brand and your expectations at the US.
Yo puedo empezar, si quieres, Eli.
Sí.
Hi, Matilda.
Oh, so good to see you. How are
Hi.
you?
Nice to see you.
We met in Miami 2 weeks ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I already told you a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
But once again, we already have some experience selling to the US, wholesale. We worked with a showroom in the past. Now we're not working with anyone. We have some clients that we've been selling them like for several seasons now. And our goal is to go all the way, wholesale, retail, everything.
Yes. And I looked at the
That's
brand.
like
It
our
looks
goal,
great.
like to have a brand that is, yeah. So that's our goal.
Perfect. Thank you.
No sé quién quiere seguir.
Y pueden hablar en español también, yo lo entiendo, entonces, sí.
Yo sigo si quieren.
Okay.
Hi Matilda, how are you?
Good.
Well, I'm Lucia from Savia. We are like kind of starting the process of going abroad. We went last year to Coterie and this year to Coterie and Fashion Lab. So we have been to 2 fashion shows, and like we have sold, but to little boutiques. We haven't sold to any big brand, let's say. And our goal is like getting more clients, and of course trying to get those big brands in order to keep on growing as a brand.
Great, thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Anto?
Hi.
Hi.
We already met with Matilda also, and we've been talking about our like actual situation and future plans, and we will be joining their showroom soon. We're now based in Miami. We're selling through our website and also to other multi-brand stores in Miami, and well, now hoping to expand with wholesale orders too.
Perfect, yeah. Thank you, good to see you.
Jacinta just joined.
Oh, wonderful. Perfect.
Lu Bonetti.
Hi.
La voy nominando.
I am a bit asleep. Okay, my name is Lucia. I have a small brand. We sell primary leather goods. We went to Coterie last edition with Uruguay 21. And yes, I am starting with some chats with our outside supplier clients. Some of them big clients, but I am just starting the process. and I hope to have good results.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Starting is the hardest part. So let's go.
Yes.
Who else?
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Agnes Lenoble. I have a brand and we are actually selling in some small stores in Europe and in the US. We have a person that sells our things in Miami that it's actually a very good buyer in that place. And we have been in a showroom, but we had not a good experience with that. And now we are willing to focus a little bit more in the wholesale thing, and let's see if we can get some more of these little clients so we can like open our
Sounds great. I love
sales.
to hear that. Anybody else? So the purpose of this is kind of just to get to know you guys. So I'm doing this webinars and I really want to understand how I can best help you, right? So sometimes if I'm talking about pricing or if I'm talking about wholesale, I was thinking we were talking with the team here and we're like, okay, but what stage are they on and what information is more relevant, right? Because I can sit here and talk to you about a lot of things within retail. But so for example, today we're going to go over pricing. So we thought it was important to figure out, okay, have you ever done wholesale? Because I'm going to touch on wholesale and wholesale pricing. Is that something that we should even kind of take our time to review, or do we just go to DTC? Is your business model more of a DTC model? So it's just important to have this one-on-one. We don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but it's like it's good to know who we're talking to versus just like a screen, you know? Because that's the thing with the webinars. When you don't have that one-on-one face-to-face interaction, it gets a little bit different. Yes, Cecilia.
Hi, how are you, Matilda?
Doing well.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you and like learn from you. And well, my brand is Copelia, and I'm just starting in the wholesale world. And so I've been in contact. We went to Coterie in New York this September, and I'm in contact with some retailers, but I didn't sell yet. So I'm just starting in the process. And you were talking now that the pricing and all that, and the pricing is like something that I struggle a lot. It's like like you have to stuck to your strategy, and it's not easy to like establish that. So I think that is a point that is very important for us, like to try to establish a strategy for your brand in the pricing point.
No, it makes sense. And also, I just feel like also retail in the last 10 years has changed. A lot of retailers have gotten more promotional. So they put items on sale more. But that what that means for you guys is that when they're negotiating with you as brands, they're trying to get lower costs. They're trying to get higher margins. They're trying to get you to pay for co-op dollars. They're trying to get you to pay for margin dollars, right? So, but when you're negotiating with these retailers, you also have to understand kind of it's great to say that I'm at X, Y, and Z retail, I'm at Bloomingdale's or I'm Nordstrom's, but it's even better to say that you're actually making money, because I know so many brands that great, they're part of whatever retailer, but ultimately they're not making money. And if you don't make money, you cannot survive, right? You cannot keep the lights on. So I think understanding pricing and what's required from the retailer really puts you at an advantage when you're trying to negotiate. Because I'm sure, as some of you know, when you do business with these retailers, you sign a lot of paperwork. You sign a routing guide, you sign your vendor agreement forms, you sign all of these forms, but ultimately, if you don't know what you're signing and how to negotiate, that's going to be a disadvantage for you down the line. So I think that's why this session in particular is important. Does anybody else want to introduce themselves, or do we continue? Up to you all. I don't want to put anyone in the spot if you don't want to. No? Okay, we'll start. Good morning, Jacinta. Surprise, an hour earlier.
Hello, sorry.
Our
Hi.
time change.
I just realized they have the same hour as Chile, so I'm like
Yeah.
getting more in the spot. Sorry, guys.
And
So we have
so,
Jacinta here. If you, I mean, I speak Spanish, but I'm not native speaker. Jacinta is a native speaker. If anything doesn't make sense, if you wanted to hear it in Spanish, anything, just ask her. Like the
Yes.
whole point is for you guys to ask questions and for us to be as helpful as possible. So should we get started?
Yes.
yes.
Let's do it. So we're talking about pricing strategies today. Okay. So pricing, it's very simple. Customer will not pay literally a penny more than the true value of the product. So customers will only pay what they think your product is worth. That's it. We can sit here and create something amazing and say, we are going to sell it for $500. If the customer doesn't think that that's worth it, they're not going to pay for it. So we have to start with that mentality. So there's, when we talk about marketing, initially there were 4 P's of marketing, now they're like 8. But one of the main P's of marketing, aside from product, place, and promotion, is price. So pricing, that's why I say anyone who's ever been my client that I've consulted for, I really hone in on pricing because I feel like that makes or breaks your entire business. So when we're looking at pricing, we have to think, okay, after we realize why we're in business, right? Because we don't need to be in business. There's a lot of brands that sell clothing. There's a lot of brands that sell jewelry. There's a lot of brands that sell shoes, right? We don't need another brand. So when you figure out the why you're in business, you also have to figure out your competitive advantage. What makes you different? So is it a cost advantage, meaning you have a similar product than somebody else, but you have it at a lower cost? Or is it a differentiation advantage where you have a premium price, but it's a unique product? So if you think about your business, what is your competitive advantage? Are you cost advantage or are you differentiation advantage? So do you have similar products at lower costs or do you have a unique product at a premium price? Are you all able to answer this question just with the businesses you have?
I think so.
Okay. We have to think, this is the same as thinking about the why. Why are you in business? You have to have a very clear reason why, and what is your competitive advantage? You have to know these 2 points because these make your mission statement, your reason for creating your company, your reason for wanting to be out there in the marketplace, right? So optimizing product pricing is very important. So if you look at this, and I just put this together, just thinking out loud here, but on the one side, you have the product or service quality. So you can have low quality, medium quality, high quality. And then up top, you have the price. You have a high price, medium price, or low price. So a product that is premium has what? It has a high quality and a high price. A product that is high value has high quality and a medium price. And a product that is superb value, excellent value, has a high quality and a low price. Now, if a product has low quality and low price, that's an economy product. That's a disposable product. Think dollar store lives here, right? Anything that's sold in the dollar store. If you have a low quality and a medium price, that's a false economy, right? You're just trying to pull the wool over your consumer because you're providing something that's very low quality, but you're charging more than you should for it. And if you have a low quality product and a high price, that's a ripoff. You're taking advantage of people. So in all of this chart, we want to be somewhere over here. We either have high quality, high price, we either have high quality, medium price, or we have high quality, low price. Or we can be somewhere over here. In average, we can have a medium quality and a medium price, or we can have a medium quality and a low price, and we provide good value, right? But we never want to be in the rip-off area or the false economy or the overcharging portion of it, right? So when we think about pricing, we have to think, where are we going to land, right? And is our consumer going to respond to our pricing strategy? You guys should know this. So fashion price level. So we start at haute couture, we have luxury for fashion, we have bridge brands. So bridge brands are brands that kind of bridge the gap between high market price and mass market. So that's why they're called bridge, because they serve as a bridge between high market price point and mass market. You have diffusion lines. We'll talk about them in a little bit. And then you have high street, fast fashion, and economy, right? So where does your brand fit? Let's talk about brand architecture, right? So if we look at Vera Wang, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Vera Wang, right? So she has her haute couture line, so that's high price, high quality. Then look at all of the brand dilutions that she's worked on, right? She has Vera Wang Fashion and Bride. She has Vera Wang White by Vera Wang. She has Vera Wang Black by Vera Wang. She has Vera Wang Lifestyle, and she has Vera Wang Simply Vera Wang, which is low price point and not that great of a quality. But again, so if we look at her brand architecture, she's taking care of a good amount of these price point levels that exist within fashion. Obviously, she didn't launch all of them at the same time. Obviously, she kind of tested the market and did them one by one. But the reason why I show this is that, one, it's possible, but two, you have to figure out where you belong and create the brand around that price point. I mean, if you look at all of her different dilution brands, they all have a brand DNA that's different from each other, right? Because if they were not, she would not be able to sell the haute couture with at the same, I mean, at the price point she does when she has Simply Vera Wang, right? So important to brand and to create the right brand identity within each of your sub brands or dilution brands. Now,
Matilda,
pricing,
sorry,
yeah,
can I ask you something about that?
sure. Yes.
She, I mean, it's a little, how do you say it? Like a little, ay, como exigente o no sé la palabra, que no me sale la palabra, pero like very difficult to work all these brands. Like maybe some of these brands doesn't really work, or it's like they all of them work well. You know what I
So,
mean?
no, two great points. First of all, this is like a one-off example. I absolutely agree with you. And again, these were not all created at the same time. This is probably years of work. And second of all, absolutely, I don't think they all work. I don't think they all translate into the revenue that needs to. I think if I were to guess, I think the sweet spot is here. The money-making business ventures within fashion are always mass market, right? Because here you're alienating people and you have the 1% in the haute couture. Here you still have luxury and not everybody can afford it. But when you get into mass market and you make it available to the masses and you have good margins, this is kind of where you make the money. But I agree with you. I think this is overstretching a brand.
A
I don't know.
little ambitious. That was the word that I wanted to say. Ambitious.
Yeah, absolutely. Ambitious, overstretching the brand. And I don't think that it necessarily makes sense to have all of them. I just thought it was interesting that she literally went through the price point levels and almost mimicked,
Yes.
created a sub brand for each of them.
And the big ones, like they always do that, right? Like, I don't know, like Steve Madden, they have like one line, like one expensive line, and then they have like a cheaper one to make money, I think. Or
Yeah,
like,
because exactly, thank you. The cheaper one and the mass market one, that's the one that's gonna make money. The more expensive one creates your status. It creates your brand and it creates that cachet
yeah,
that
the name,
wants you.
yes.
Yeah. And then it makes everyone else want it. And once they do, then they open it up to mass market. But look at even the luxury brands. A lot of luxury brands are opening up to mass market. Like James Purse, for example, his t-shirts, I don't know if you know him. His t-shirts were $700, $800. Now he does a line called James by James Purse, and you find the t-shirts at $20 at Marshalls, right? So again, creating the brand and then figuring out a way on how to monetize it. I think that's the goal for most of these brands. Now, when we look at pricing, this is what we have to look at. Retail pricing, because what is retail pricing? It's what the consumer is going to pay. Wholesale pricing, it's what your buyers are going to pay or your clients who are going to resell it. your factory cost. It's what you're paying. So you have to negotiate the best cost possible. And all of these three focus on what? The gross margin. And the gross margin basically tells us if we're making money or not. So if you learn anything about your business, it's memorizing and truly understanding these four silos in pricing: retail, wholesale, factory, your cost pricing, and then your gross margin. Once you manage these and understand these, I think the rest of it is a lot easier. So we're gonna dive into all of them in more detail now. When I ask you guys, what's your pricing strategy? If you look at a textbook, these are some, there's more, examples of the different pricing strategy. You have everyday low pricing, which Walmart does, which items are at a very discounted price every day. You don't need to wait for a sale. You have bundle pricing, which is buy two, get the third one, or they put them, especially this works in the cosmetic world where they do bundles in little boxes where it's like 2 face washes and a mascara or something, bundle pricing. And again, bundle pricing, it might seem affordable, but you're sacrificing size, and probably the retailer's margin is better with bundle pricing. You have leader pricing. If you're the leader in a category, you have the lowest price or the best price. You have prestige pricing. This is the pricing for luxury brands. So all of these pricing strategies are very much different, but ultimately, when we're thinking, okay, which one applies to my business, we go back to what is our competitive advantage, right? The second slide I showed you. So once we have our competitive advantage, we can come here and be like, okay, this is the pricing strategy that works best for me. Competition-based pricing is one of the pricing strategies that we most use in retail. And as the name says it, what you do is, for example, you are going to design a silk or faux silk long dress, black dress. You look at the competition and you say, okay, what are my competitors retailing this dress for? What is the material composition? And then, is this a bestseller for them? So you do research online and you check your competitors prior to pricing yourself. Any of you guys do this when you went through your pricing? No?
No, not at all.
Yes,
Not at all.
I do this a lot.
You do this a lot. Tell me why.
Yes, we always do.
Well, I really for the US prices, that when I see my strategy, when I want to offer something to the US, I'm a little bit lost sometimes, and it's so huge and so many brands and everything. So I really try to see, okay, where can I compete?
Mhm.
And I start my prices with the retail price.
Yes.
Like we are a brand that what my first focus is selling on the US. So if my margins at first are lower, I don't care. It's like I want to validate it there.
Yeah.
So I start with my retail price. What would be the best retail price, or what would, I don't know, denim, a jean pant,
Yeah.
no? Okay, where is my jean? What are my competitors? So I just try to be a little bit lower than what a well-known brand is, because of course I'm not a well-known brand, so I have to have something more interesting. Like I have the quality, perfect. I need to be a little bit more lower so my buyers can take the chance to just try my product.
Yeah.
That's what I don't know if it works or not, but.
No, it's funny.
And then from there, I just see the wholesale price, and I don't care about margins at the first
Yeah. Okay.
beginning.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because that's how I kind of approach it too, is look at the retail. Look at your competitors who are serving your same consumer base, right? If you're going after a certain consumer, who are your competitors, and see how they're pricing. And when we see how they're pricing, one tip I always tell everybody is pay attention to whether or not their garments are on sale. Because if their garments are on sale, it also tells us that their pricing might be wrong. that
Was
there's
very
price
high.
resistance with the consumer. So then you have to pay mind and say, okay, well, maybe they've gone too high and I need to be here. So, and again, it's a little bit of research, because you cannot just pull up a brand one day and say, okay, that's the price, that's it. No, we kind of follow them and figure out where they land. And again, it's easier to offer discounts than offer price increases. So that's why that initial retail price needs to be right, because you cannot turn around and tell the consumer, we're having a 20% increase on our pricing. Most of them will walk away, because we also don't have consumer loyalty the way we did 10 or 15 years ago, because because consumers now have options. They have too many.
Matilda,
Yes.
I do wanted to say something about this.
Yeah.
It's good to do research, and it's so difficult also, because for me, like, you don't know the quality of the product, like just Googling or like going online. So it's so tough. It's so difficult to understand what quality are we talking about.
Yeah.
But also, the thing with the prices is, in Uruguay at least, that I think all the brands here, like, we all produce in Uruguay, most of us, and the prices of production are so high, and the also the quantity is so low that it's so difficult to compete with this.
Yeah.
Just going around in the internet and comparing with other brands, because they probably do in India or whatever, and they have like so much so different costs of the products.
Yeah. But that's why we go back to the competitive advantage. Then maybe the competitive advantage is not the price.
Pricing.
Maybe you differentiate yourself with quality, right?
Yeah, quality, or maybe design, right? Because
design,
I think,
quality, anything.
yeah,
Yes. And always look at the description, look at the material composition of anything that you're comparing yourself to. Because while you cannot tell quality a lot, at least you know what materials it is.
yes,
Because
that's
it's,
important too. Yes.
yeah, if it's polyester and you're offering silk, then it's an
Yeah,
you know,
incomparable. Yes.
yeah. So we always keep that in mind. I also think it's helpful to kind of keep it in the back of your head. Are you going to follow these price points exactly the same? No, but at least you're educated enough to know what's out there. And just knowing that, I think it's helpful. Even when you're creating your new collection, even when you're designing, even when you're looking at what trims you're going to add, what buttons, because then you keep in mind, okay, if I add a trim, if I add a button, that adds to the cost. Do I really need to add to the cost? Because if I add to the cost, then the retail gets higher, so on and so forth. The other price strategy that I really like is the bottoms up pricing. So this is a brand from Portugal. It's called Isto. So if you go into their website, Isto does this, where it tells you, like, this is one of the garments I was looking at, and it says, okay, buttons cost us 18 cents, labor costs us $56, transportation cost us 89 cents, logistics this, labels this, fabrics this. And it tells them, okay, so the total material cost for this garment that I'm looking at, it's $89.34. So they're telling me, okay, but your price, my price, if I were as a consumer to pay for it, is $275. But they also tell me that traditional retail, meaning other competitors, are selling it for $540. So just by looking at this garment, they gave me a full breakdown of the cost, and they gave me a little bit of a lesson in what it cost them to make it. Additionally, as the consumer's mentality is shifting towards a more sustainable way of approaching shopping, this is a way where I just, in my mind, I check the box. Okay, they're paying fair wages, they're paying their workers labor as they should, and they're accounting for everything, and that's their margin. So that transparency in pricing also, I think, creates a little bit of trust in the brand, because I said before that we don't have brand loyalty at all, especially in the US. I don't know, maybe in Uruguay you guys have a little bit more brand loyalty and your consumer follows you a little bit more, but here it's a free for all. Here you compete on price, or you're luxury and you're just you have your status and they're following you for your status. But mass market, it's very confusing and busy. And everyone's competing on price, or design to some extent. So having a brand like this where it's like, here it is, we are very transparent, this is what it cost us, this is what we're charging you, but in reality, if you were to get something comparable from a competitor, this is what you would pay, makes you think, okay, well, you make a more educated shopping decision from a consumer endpoint. And from
This is what
yeah.
they present this to the retailers? Like,
No,
do
this
they
is
show
on the
this?
website. No, if you go to their
Okay.
website, yeah, if you're
Oh,
looking
that's
to
good.
buy this is what they tell the consumer. Like on the page, it gives you the cost breakdown.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yes.
Isn't it? Because I feel
Yes,
like when,
lovely.
yeah, it's transparency. The consumer doesn't feel like they're being cheated or they're being scammed. It's like, this is what it is. This is what we're taking as our margin. This is what you're paying, and this is what it would cost you elsewhere. So a little quick snapshot of that. So this is called
Yeah.
bottoms up pricing, where you start with the pricing of the cost and you work your way up. So pricing, some of the things we just talked about, you have to know your numbers. If you're working with factories, you have to understand that they're going to negotiate to their benefit, not yours. So you have to always negotiate. You have to familiarize yourself with pricing as it relates to all aspects of manufacturing. I have a lot of clients who give me the price of the actual garment. And it's like, no, it's the garment plus everything else we're going to go over. There's a lot of online resources that provide great information. Always start with your retail price goal. Always. That's always been my approach when I was a buyer at any time. You start with your retail price. And then you research the market and analyze the competitors. So, formulas. I love math. And that's why I was a buyer. But these are basically, as a business owner, you have to know most of these, if not all of these formulas. You have to know your markup. We're going to go over that. You have to know your net profit and your gross profit, which is your gross margin percentage on dollars. You have to know your sales to stock ratio, because that tells you if you are overstocked or if you're lacking inventory. You have to understand your sales per square foot or square meter, because that's how retailers are going to judge you. If you're a wholesale brand, they're going to see what are your sales per square foot and if it's worth them keeping you. You have to know your turnover. How fast is the product turning? How many orders are the retailers placing? You have to know your open to buy. I can do a whole class on open to buy where you figure out how much money you have every season to spend. You have to know your sales to stock ratio. You have to know we want to say I have sales per square foot twice. You have to know your margin and your break-even analysis. Again, break-even analysis, we can have a separate class on. It's a lot of information. But we're going to focus on markup and margin today. So, as we said, and as Florencia said, you work it backwards. That's what's worked, and I think it's a great way to do it. So you know your retail price. Then you know your retail markup, more or less, of what you want to make. Then you figure out the wholesale price and the production cost. So we always say the consumer cost is based on consumer price resistance more than anything else. So we need to ensure that whatever cost we're going forth with is something that's digestible for the end consumer. I have something called the 3 times or 4 time rules. So you take your cost, your total cost, and you multiply it by 3 or 4 times, because so after you have your retail goal, you work it backwards, right? But then you take that cost. If you multiply that cost times 3 times or 4 times, does that take you to your retail? You have to check and make sure that that's the case, because 3 times, why? Because the first cost covers your cost, so you break even. The second will cover some sort of marketing or cost of shipping, and then the third is profit. Sometimes you go up to 4 times depending on your business model, and I'll go into more detail later. So, markup. Do we know the difference between markup and margin? So markup basically answers the question, how much can I get for this? So I designed this jacket and I say, how much can I get for it? It cost me $10 and I am going to sell it for $20, right? So markup is how much can I get for this? And it's an estimate. It's a good estimate, an educated guess that you make based on information you gather. Now, gross margin is how much did you make on this? So we can set a price with a markup and say, I'm going to sell this jacket for $1,000. So my markup is 80%, right? But then the gross margin answers the question, how much did I make on this? If from $1,000, I mark this down to $20, so then what I made is $10 because it cost me 10 and now I sold it for 10. It didn't matter that I initially put the price of $1,000 because that's not money I gained. That was just my guess of what it would sell for. But ultimately, gross margin tells us the actual money we made. Markup gives us the theoretical idea of what we think we were going to make, and gross margin tells us what we actually made. So, formulas. Markup. You take your retail cost, you take your retail, you subtract it by cost, and you divide by cost. And that's your markup. So retail, you subtract your cost and you divide by cost. That's how you get your markup, and it's a percent. Your margin is you take your retail, you subtract by cost, and you divide by retail. Okay? So see the difference? That's why I said that the margin tells us how much we made after we sold it. That's why we take the retail, we divide by cost, and we divide by retail of what we sold it for. Versus markup is just based on your cost and your ideal price point. Do we have questions on this part? I'm going to give you an example on the next one to kind of solidify it. So if an item costs $50 and you sell it for $75, the markup is 25, right? Because you took 75 and you subtracted $50, so you made $25. But now, what is the markup in percentage? So can we calculate that? So if you grab your phone and you do, what was the markup formula again? Does anyone remember the markup formula? Retail minus cost divided by cost. Okay, so what's our retail? 75. We subtract our cost, $50. And then what do we do to this? We divide by what?
Cost 75.
By cost. So we divide by 50. So we got a markup of 50%. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now the margin, if you sell the item for $75 and the cost is $50, the profit is $25, right? But can you calculate the margin? So what's the formula for margin? We
It's
take retail.
divided the retail price.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah. Florencia, go ahead.
yes, you divide it by the retail price.
Yeah, so we do 75 minus 50, which is what it cost us. We get 25. We divide that 25 by the retail, which was 75, and we get a 33 markup, 33 margin. So the same item has a markup of 50% and a margin of 33%. So markup is based on cost, margin is based on retail. Questions? No. Okay. Now, so if you take the retail price and you divide that retail price by 2, you get a 50% margin. So $100 retail, if I divide it by 2, it's 50, so my margin is 50%, right? If that's my cost. If you take your retail price, you divide it by 3, you have a 66% margin. If you take your retail price and you divide it by 4, you have a 75% margin. If you take your retail price, you divide it by 5, you have an 80% margin. And you can work this backwards. If I have a cost and I multiply it by 5, that means that I'm going to get an 80% margin. If I have a cost and I multiply it by 4, it's a 75% margin. If I have cost and I multiply it by 3, it's a 66% margin. So remember I said here, the 3 times or 4 times rule. So basically, I want you guys to be here. I want you to be at the 66 or the 75% margin. This is the safe area to be in. Yes.
Yes, I want to make something clear that is our taxes here in Uruguay. That
Okay.
I'm sure that everywhere you have taxes, and it will depend how you work it out. But in Uruguay, and it depends on your kind of company, because there are different ways of having a company here also. But it's good to know, like, besides what it takes to send the product to the US, and if you have to import it in the US, blah, blah, blah. But when you're sending like a small, like sometimes you have to see how much you have to send to have some costs more licuados, no sé cómo decirlo,
Mhm.
more licuados. And in my case, for example, every sale I make, I have to pay like a 25% on what I bought and what I sold. So there is another number there that sometimes it makes it a little bit more expensive. I don't know if I made myself clear.
You did, but do you add that 25%? Do you add that to your original cost or no?
Well, I don't add it directly to the cost,
Okay.
but yes, at the end, I have to have it on my mind. Like if I have a 33% margin, that it's
Yeah.
what that I have to rest my 25% from that 33%.
Yeah,
But
and we should never have a 33% margin.
so yeah, I know, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's what you get, because you're how like Copelia said that the costs here in Uruguay are pretty high. So
Yeah.
if you're producing here and you're producing low minimums that usually are more expensive because you have one sample to pay and maybe you're doing like 20 items. So,
Sure.
so costs get a little bit high,
Sure.
like in reality.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just something that you have to know. And if you're okay with winning or not winning that kind of margins,
Yeah.
because it's what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, at least, maybe you can know that if at the beginning you're getting that margin, but once if you are doing okay, you're going to make better. Like I think in Uruguay we're in like the worst price point we
Okay.
can ever. Like we're producing very expensive. Like we are in an expensive country. We produce very expensive. So if we can make it now, like producing very low, we can always get better. We can always get better margins in the future.
Yeah. I agree with you. I still think we should probably pad maybe not the entire 25%, but maybe 10 to 15% to the cost and maybe break it up. And as I said, then maybe you compete on quality and design, because if pricing is what it is and there's not much you can do to work around it, then you guys compete on quality and design. And when you're doing, even when you're doing your price comparison, then it's not the same price comparison, because if it's an item made in China, it's just not the same garment in terms of how it was produced, the details, and all the work put into it. So
yeah, but not necessarily because it's made in China, you're going to have a better, like here it's very difficult to have a good materia prima.
yeah.
You know, like if you want to have your buttons that say your brand and you want to have these small details wherever, that not necessarily because something is made, like I like to see, I like to know, like, is the customer really looking where the product is made, or they want to have a good product for a good price, like an honest product price.
Yeah. So generally good product for good price, but the younger generations are a lot more conscious of how
Yes.
their money. So
I
it
will
depends
say,
on the cohort. Yes.
yes, I will say that, also, I agree. Like, newer generations are so focused on where they buy. Like, I remember, for example, 5 years ago when they have the sale in Zara and you go to Aventura Mall and it was empty. Now you see like the mom buying the things for the girls, and then the next few days they returning. Like they today get save so much money to really invest in what they like, and it's aligned to their values.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
crazy how it's that shifting, and it's because basically we have all this information through social media that they want better products.
Okay. And you say that maybe we're going away from the margins and costs, but I think it's interesting to know, like in the US market,
Yeah.
If these young consumers, because
Yeah.
something that I also realized that sometimes it's like prices that are high, like these young consumers, but that maybe are more aware, but they don't buy such expensive garments. I don't know if
Also,
you think that's like that or it's just
I will add something here that it's super important, that it's a sense as we as Latin American people tend to think that young people earn the same as they earn in our countries. And
okay.
here you need to think like, for example, if you have a part-time job, you can be a full-time student and also have a part-time job, and you will earn like between 3K to 5K a month, and you will say like that's a full salary for a person who works full time in a Latin American country. So they
Okay.
move more money.
See, so they are okay to spend $250 for a shirt.
Yes.
But also going back to the Isto example, also creating that loyalty with your consumer. So whether it's using social media to take them behind the scenes of where you manufacture, to show who is making their product, to show your facilities, to show the reason why you're in business, to show anything, charities you support. So you have to create, again, you create your community, and you create your community and you educate your community in what you're providing. Because if they say two shirts and this is cheaper, yeah, most of the time they are going to choose the cheaper one. In general, I'm making a generalization. If you take two shirts and you know that this brand is the one you follow, and you know how it's made, and you know who the face behind it, and you know who the designers are, and even if you have transparency on pricing, you know where that money is going, for the money you're paying for it. I think it also shifts the mentality of the consumer spending.
Okay.
Mhm.
No, I just wanted to know if that was something that it's for real and like it's I know that in the marketing it's happening.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants to put that marketing, that it's sustainable, that it's uh, blah blah blah. But I just wanted to know if what the sense was for real in the US, because here maybe yes, people are aware that they like to buy Uruguayan products. Like there is this niche that wants to buy Uruguayan products and say, okay, it's nice, this is made in Uruguay, blah blah blah. But still, they go to Zara and buy a lot there. So it's
And
hard
you,
to know sometimes what is the marketing doing and saying,
yeah.
and what is really the consumer doing. You know.
But you also have to position yourself in the right retailer too, right? Because your brand ethos have to align with the retailer's brand ethos and price points and consumer um, target audience, right? Because if you are this great, beautiful Uruguayan brand and your t-shirts are $200, then maybe, I don't know, going and having a contract with Macy's is not the right place for you, right?
Of course.
Because that
Yeah.
consumer is not looking for that. So I think brand ethos need to align. And when you align brand ethos, you align brand ethos with the consumer and the retailer as well. Um, Again, the US is a huge market. There's so much opportunity. There is the retail industry, there's so much money floating around. It's just figuring out where you belong in it and finding your niche.
Yes.
Uh, and it can happen. It happens for brands every day. But you have to have your why. You have to have your competitive advantage. Why are you in business? You cannot just be a t-shirt line. You cannot just be a dress line just because. There's no
Okay.
more of that. I'm just producing because I think I dress cute and my friends think I dress cute. No, I'm producing because I have a design background, because I'm bringing this to the market, because this new fabric I'm bringing forth, because I'm supporting indigenous women here. Like that
Yeah.
there needs to be substance in it.
Yeah.
That kind of
I totally agree.
and propels it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
So we went through retail to cost, going back to this. Now, so again, just to reiterate it, if the retail price is $100, let's say I'm creating a shirt, it's going to be $100. We divide by two, $50. So $50 is the cost and 50% is the margin. Now, if it's $100, you divide by 3, right? So $33 is your cost. A $33 cost to a $100 retail is a 66% margin. If it's $100, you divide by 4. If you have a $25 cost on a $100 garment, 75% is your margin. So the higher the margin, the more opportunity you have to create marketing dollars, create more of a brand identity when it comes to the right packaging, when it comes to the right labels, when it comes to creating a whole brand. So your margin dollars cannot only be allocated to product and manufacturing, they can be allocated to your entire business. That's your piggy bank. So you want that margin percent to be as high as possible while in line with your target retail. So the most important thing, gross margin must cover all of the operating expenses. So, factory, store-ready packaging, merchandiser's warehouse, drop shipping, anything. So when you're calculating your margin, you're calculating all of the costs that it took to get your product from factory to end consumer, right? Because most of the time you're the one paying for it, so you have to calculate those costs to really understand what your profit was. Versus just like, oh, this is what it cost me, and that's the end of it. So high margin, 60 plus, excellent. That's where we want to be. Average margin, 50%, we're good. Not great, but we're good. Low margin, anything under 40, it makes doing business a lot more challenging. Now, if you have a 40% margin and it's direct to consumer, I would be okay with it for a little bit. But we realize that no brand stays as direct to consumer. You always have to look for ways to diversify. So you might enter the wholesale market, you might enter the brick and mortar market. So anything else that you do outside of the business, that 40% is going to dwindle down even more. So it's not a comfortable place to be in, if that makes sense. Now, a 50% gross profit margin, a high gross profit margin gives you more money to run operations, right? A 15%, 1.5 gross profit margin is a low gross profit margin and won't leave you enough room to run your business. So we want, as I said, high gross GM margins to basically sustain and propel our business. Okay, so this is a little quiz. A fashion retailer purchases a handbag for $80 and they sell it for $200. So they get it wholesale for $80 and they sell it for $200. What is the markup percentage of the handbag and what is the margin? Who can calculate this for us?
Sí, el color es lindo, pero la tela mucho no me gusta.
Paula, we can hear you. Oh, there we go. Okay. So what is the markup on the handbag and what is the margin?
I think nobody remembers the formula.
Nobody
Girls.
wrote it down? Do you guys remember the formula? Okay, let's go back to the formula. So, markup formula, retail minus cost divided by cost. Margin formula, retail minus costs divided by retail. So for each of them, you take retail, you subtract cost, but for markup, you divide by cost. For margin, you divide by retail. So let's go back to our exercise. What do we think? Do we have an
So
answer?
it's the margin it's 0.6.
So you always multiply with 100 because it's a percentage.
Okay, it's
150.
60%.
Mm-hmm.
Markup.
The margin, it's a 60% in this case.
And what is the markup?
And the markup is the other way around. So it's 200 minus cost divided cost. 1.5.
Okay. Do we have, so 1.5 times 100 is what? Because it's a
100.
percent always.
Ah, yeah, 150.
Okay. Did you guys get different results? Can someone else share their results?
No, I have the same.
You have the same. Lucia, did you get anything different? No. No. Okay. So let's look at it. So markup is 150% markup. So when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's a high markup. Great. But then what is your margin? A 60% margin. Is a 60% margin good, great, or bad?
No, it's great.
It's
Good,
great, right?
great.
We want to be at this. Okay.
Yeah.
True or false? The higher the retail price, the higher the gross margin. Is this true?
No, false.
Why?
It depends on the cost.
Thank you. Just because we see a high price,
Doesn't mean
that
it's
the margin
it's a
is
good
great.
business.
Yeah, thank you. So the higher the retail price, the gross margin isn't automatically higher. We have to look at production costs to figure it out. Now, markdowns. This can be a class on its own because calculating markdowns is very important, but we're gonna go kind of top level here. So what's a markdown? It's a reduction in price or a discount. So markdowns, what they do is they should increase your traffic and your sales, because when people hear sale, they tend to buy more. They feel like they're getting a deal, they're bargain hunting. So it technically should increase your foot traffic and increase your sales. But what they also do is they decrease your profit. Because why? What do you do when you run a markdown?
Because you lower the retail price.
You lower the retail
So
price.
your margin gets smaller.
Your margin gets smaller. Your cost remains the same.
Yeah.
You paid for it the same amount. I mean, you just paid one amount for it, so that doesn't affect things, but you're selling it for less. And if you're selling it for less, like Florencia says, that lowers your profit margin. So usually placing an item on sale or discounted becomes a huge expense for a business. There's 4 different stages of discounting that we're gonna go over. But if the price for an item is $60, what is that price at 25 off, at 35 off, at 50 off, at 75 off?
$45 with a 25 off.
Yes. So we calculate it this way. So 60 times 0.25 is 15. So we take our retail, we subtract $15. So the $60 item at 25% off is $45. The $60 item at 35% off is $39. That same $60 item at 50% off is $30, and at 75% off is $15. So now look how your profit dwindles with each of these different discount or clearance cadences. So we have to be very mindful when we run discounts and understand why we run them. So usually there's 4 types of sales that we run in the US. We run a sale that's in season. So let's say you got your goods in, there's a holiday, Labor Day or something, we run an in-season sale. These goods are in season. There's no reason to really promote them other than it being a holiday. So you can usually run a 10 to 20% off. End of season sale, you're getting your new season inventory in, so you need to get rid of the old season items, so you go 25 to 50. Clearance in the US is usually 50 to 75% off, and liquidation, you usually mark it out of stock. So if you are a good buyer, if you are a good designer, if you truly understand your consumer, if your product is in the right retail space, then you should be somewhere in here in season. You take 20 off. End of season, you should have very little to no inventory to liquidate. And you should never have inventory for clearance, because at 50 to 75 off, you are literally basically not making money and you might be losing money. So when we are producing, the goal is not to overproduce. The goal is to do our research and to figure out pricing in a way that makes sense. You're never going to sell all of your inventory at 100% regular price. That doesn't happen. But we can allow in a business a 20% discount, a 25% discount. But when we get in that 30 and over discounted range, then we have to be very cautious and really understand what that does to the margin dollars. And you never want to go in a liquidation sale. So when I was a buyer, like that's how I was judged. If the product I brought in was ever on clearance, then my boss would say I did a horrible job, right? Because I don't understand the consumer, or I don't understand the price point. I brought in product that the consumer
Nobody
doesn't like.
Or
for
you bought
whatever
a lot,
reason. And
or
it
you
didn't
bought too
work.
much.
Yeah, I might have bought too much. I might have bought the wrong one. I might have bought it for the wrong season, whatever the case might be, right? So the success from a brand perspective, and even a retailer or buyer perspective, is to run sales. We cannot be blind to the fact that promotions are happening everywhere, but you want to be in that 20 off or 25 off kind of frame there. If you go over 30, we're a little bit in trouble with that. And I think that's kind of the end of this. So you always remember, price is what you pay, cost is what you spend, and value is what you get. That's what the consumer is looking for. They're looking for value, they're looking for status, they're looking for self-esteem. No one is buying the garment itself. We're buying emotions, we're selling emotions, right? So we have to really work towards understanding who the consumer is and catering to their needs and to what they seek. In the US, we're overproducing, we're overstored, we have too much of everything with over-consuming. So when we are buying products, we're buying it for reasons other than the garment itself, right? We are in the business of selling a want, not a need. Nobody needs more clothes. Nobody needs anything. We're selling a want. So we're selling self-esteem. We're selling status. We are selling value. We're selling kind of the ethos of it all. So we always have to keep that in mind. We are in the business of catering to people's egos a little bit. So
yeah.
Any questions? No?
Oh, it was very clear, everything.
Perfect. Do you, looking at the markup and the margin, do you feel like you guys are where you need to be with your pricing, or do you need to check it?
We need to check it, obviously. Always. I think that it's like how do I say, like a process that it never ends, maybe?
Yeah.
Because of course everything goes up too. Like maybe, I don't know, your fabrics, or you change fabric and then it's a different cost, so you have to check all
Yeah.
over again, or right?
Yeah.
Like it's a permanent exercise.
Yeah. But that's why you want to pad that margin to begin with. That's why I say 3 or 4 times, so that if there's small cost changes, you can kind of absorb them without changing the retail. If it's something
Yes.
major, absolutely. But you want to give yourself a little wiggle room so that when small changes
Yeah,
are
that's
happening,
perfect.
you can absorb it.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, ladies. Well, you have my email. You have my contact. If you need anything, I'm here. Next week, we're doing our last session, and it's going to be on branding. And again, if I can help with anything, I'm here.
Thank you so much, Matilda.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, Matilda.
Thank you, Matilda. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.